Hi, friends. Little spontaneity here. So I was on this scheduled call with a new friend of mine, Creeden, and you're going to meet him here in a moment. He's coming to us from South Carolina, right?
Yes, Charleston.
And yeah, Charleston, South Carolina. As I just found out, just literally a stone's throw from the beach. He could probably throw a stone from his porch to the beach. So I'd like to live that close to any beach. But no, we're on a scheduled call right now to talk about other things. And I just got to talking with him a little bit about this gratitude podcast that we do. And so we're going to record this now, and I'll air it when you hear it. It's going to be Friday, the 20th of June. So tomorrow, as we stand right now. So, Court, thanks for agreeing to just take a few minutes with me on this portion of this conversation. When we finish recording here, we'll get into our real conversation. So, welcome
Of
to
course.
the Start from the Heart Gratitude Podcast.
Love it. Glad to be here and have a fun chat with you, Ed.
Yeah, he had no idea when we logged on to the Zoom call that we were going to do this, but what the heck, right? So Court and I were introduced through a mutual friend recently. We've had one Zoom call, several emails. And one thing that I've learned about friendship is I had a conversation a half hour ago with a guy. I'm 61 years old. And I had a conversation a half hour ago or so with a buddy of mine who I met when I was 14. And
Mm,
we've stayed in touch. Yeah, we've been to each other's weddings. We've been through thick and thin together. And what would that be? That would be 40 plus. I'll just let everybody else do the math. Plus years ago. You and I met a couple of weeks ago, but we fast become friends.
right.
Um, when you think of that word gratitude, I know you're a man of faith, as am I. So, go wherever you want to go with this. We touch all topics. Just when you think of that topic, gratitude, what comes to mind for you?
Oh, wow. My answer has changed a lot, Ed, for sure. I mean, from the very, very obvious, deep, deep gratitude I had for, my wife and, the ability to be a dad to my son and daughter, Cove and Hazel. But the interesting part of that is none of that is the reality I'm in today without years and years and years of things that I would not have been grateful for at the time. And so it's kind of that old, country song like, thank God for unanswered prayers,
You're
where,
right. Yeah.
the number of things that, be it a deal that didn't go through or a relationship that didn't work out or the hardest times, the illness issues, what have you, I think what I've become most grateful for is the ability to completely release any attachment to outcome. And we have the sense that, making more money or getting the good deal or, getting the tickets or whatever, the good stuff is what we should be grateful for. But I've found that that kind of fits into this prescriptive modality of life that, you got to be grateful for the good stuff. And what I've realized is that I don't know if meeting the girl or doing this or doing that is actually,
Hmm.
the good today doesn't necessarily mean things are going my way, nor does the bad.
Yeah.
And,
Okay.
so I am becoming extremely, extremely grateful for the moments and the presence of whatever right now is, whether or not that's, my child being sick and just being able to sit there and have a little bit more time with them and just being present in that moment and not being stressed or frustrated that I'm having to hop off a Zoom call or
Right.
whatever else it is. So I feel really, really grateful for that perspective change because it's allowed me to be where my feet are significantly more than I was in the past. I think I would ebb and flow in and out of that place. Life is busy, work is busy, marriage is busy, being a parent is busy. And I think it was Djokovic who said, the difference between the good players and the great players are the ones that can, after a bad point, get back into that focus quicker than
Yeah.
others. He's like, we're all great, but the really, really, really good ones, the distance between that mental gap is much shorter. So to me, that's been a huge focus of how do I alleviate and get out of the distracted mindset and back into that really present mindset. And so that's what that practice, I would just say I've been become really, really grateful for um, because it's opened up a life at Canada I didn't really even know was
Yeah.
possible. I always thought all the good stuff came as a result of years and decades of effort and work. Um, but through my personal work, and what I do in the career setting, when you see countless people who have it all have achieved every single thing and all the attributes of a successful life, but the days and moments of their life do not feel successful, you realize that I think we're solving for the wrong calculus way too often.
Yeah, I hear that. I'm hearing another word as you're talking, and that's perception.
Hmm.
Talk about marketing as perception. It's perception is reality is that term I think we've all heard. And what I'm hearing you say is how we perceive the situation really dictates our level of gratitude. I mean, we
Hmm.
can look at challenges. You can look at your child being sick and you feel bad that your child is sick, but the gratitude side of that is I get this time to nurture and to be with her or him. And,
Right.
just that perception of I'm going through a really tough challenge and I can look at it as, yeah, this sucks. And it might, but I can also
Hmm.
look at it as, but man, the growth and every challenge I've had in my life, I'm 61 years old, as I mentioned a minute ago. I've had ebbs and flows, to your point.
Hmm.
And to be able to look at there's a Christian song out right now that I just heard and I sent it to my wife and she's loving it now too, called Flowers. And the
Mm.
line in the song about how, and I'm going to paraphrase it, but the flowers grow in valleys. I mean, you look at a valley and it's like, why am I going through this hard time? And it's like during that hard time, we grow the most. I mean, the beauty is in the valley, not necessarily. Most of us don't see the peak of the mountain. We can't get that high, but we all see the valley. We can look down on it or we're in it. And
Hmm.
the beauty there in the valley, because most of us do see it. Very few of
Exactly.
us get to see the top of Mount Everest. I know a couple people who have, but not very many. And but we all get to see, the plateaus and the valleys. So it's all about
Hmm.
perception.
Absolutely. Love that.
Yeah. When you think of what would make today a great day. So I write in this 5-minute gratitude journal and it starts with what are three things that I'm grateful for? What are three things that'll make today great? And at the
Mm.
end of the day, what are three great things that happened today? And what are two things that I could have done better? And I do that most days. I'll be honest, I don't do it every day, but I think about it every day. There's not a day goes by that I don't think about those questions. I just don't always
Right.
write it down. When you think about today or any day in particular, what has to have happened in your life? Usually, not always, not every day is the same, but typically, what does a great day look like for you?
So I remember years ago, I had this idea that came to me, Ed. I think of each day as like a bottle of water. And at the end of the day, I'm either going to have drank every last drop of that day and experience every single moment that was available to me, or I'm going to be in a situation where there's a bottle that I didn't even,
Hmm.
you know,
It's just
take the
kind of
top
sitting
off
there.
up and start
Yeah.
drinking into at all. And when I realized that for so much of my life, just the busyness of life keeps you from even being able to truly be present in that day that you're in, and in retrospect, you start looking back, you're like, man, there's crates and crates and
A lot
pallets
of
of water bottles of life
right.
that I never even took
Hmm.
a drink of. And so simplistically, I mean, I really take the perspective that every day of my life is the greatest day of my life
Hmm.
because it's the only day I'm living in.
Yeah.
And so my goal is to, if you've gone to a concert, an outdoor concert or a big festival, um, people are better about it now, but back in the day, you'd look around and there'd be, bottles everywhere, all over the ground. And
Right.
like mentally, that's what I want the picture to be of the days of my life. Just empty bottles that I have drank
Hmm.
up every last sip of every single day. And that I'm not going to look back when I'm 95 years old on my deathbed and be like, I was just getting through it. I
Yeah.
was doing the
Look at all those
thing.
bottles I never touched.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the perspective. And, I joke when the kids were little, and sometimes they were having a hard time on the way to school. I would just trying to break up the energy. I'm like, it's going to be a great day. Oh yeah. It's like going to be a great day. And I would just say
Yeah.
that over and over. And they,
Yeah.
when they were very, very little, and they're just bickering over whatever. And it's literally just become like the morning mantra where I'll just say it. And, the kids are like, it's going to be a great day. Oh
And if you
yeah.
don't say it, Dad, you
Oh,
haven't said
Dad.
it yet.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So that's, again, I think that too often there's this delayed sense of when life is going to be amazing. I mean, you think about the story of life, right? You work really hard in high school to get into a good college, and
Yeah.
you're doing all these things in high school. That's like, well, you're sacrificing so that you can get into a good school, and then
Everything's
you get
about the
into the good
future. Yeah.
college, right? And then it's like, all right, well, now you're going to spend the next 40 years working really hard and sacrificing, blah, 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 to then hopefully in your 60s, be able to enjoy the fruits of your labor. But I mean, I know it from my work, and you probably know it from your friends and your work, the
Yeah.
number of people who you sit down and the days of their life, they're like, life's amazing, man. I love
Yeah.
it. I'm
Yeah.
feeling the joy and the gratitude of this life. And I just simply completely disagree with the fact that life is something that we delay the experience of enjoying.
Yeah.
I don't buy into that story one
Yeah.
bit.
It's
So
about,
I think that's
yeah.
something that helps people sell this widget or that program or this, tool to do something else.
Yeah, marketing is convincing people that they don't have what you have and they need
Right.
what you have.
Yeah.
And, life isn't good until look at turn on the TV and look at all the commercials for sickness and
Okay.
depression. And, imagine the life you could have if you take this drug or if you buy this product, and convincing us that we're not happy.
Hmm.
A guest of mine from North Carolina recently told me, you're in South Carolina. She told me last week, you turn on the news, its intention is to make you mad.
Oh, absolutely.
These
Yeah.
commercials and these ads and these conversations and so much we get exposed to every day is created to convince us that we're not enough, that we don't have what we should have. And it's just a sad statement because, we know as God-fearing men and Christians and men of faith that God created us in his image and that we're perfect in his image. And
Mm.
yeah, we strive and we want to have new things and we want to have a nicer house and live by the beach or drive a nice car or take care of our families and stuff. And those are all good and well as long as we don't replace what's most important with those things.
Right.
And so no, I appreciate that. I do a lot of training and teaching, and one of the images and something I'm going to do with one of my upcoming classes, I'm going to put a bottle of water that's full, and I'm going to put an empty bottle in front, and I'm going to ask my students to just observe the two bottles and write about them. And I'm not going to
I
give
love
them
that.
any indication, but then I'm going to go back and I'm going to share your story. I love that. I love that, at the end of the day, have I used up everything that this day gave me? Because so often
Hmm.
we don't. So often we look back and it's like, man, look at that opportunity I missed, or look at that thing I didn't do, or boy, my checklist doesn't have anything checked off today.
Yeah. Or it's even this more simple, I didn't sit down and get on the ground and play with my kids, or I
Kid.
didn't, I walked right by the guy who was playing the violin on the street because I was, in a rush and I couldn't just sit there for a moment and listen to,
Yeah.
beautiful music,
Yeah. Awesome.
whatever that is.
All right. Well, I'll thank you for being
My
willing
pleasure.
to be spontaneous with me here and just have this
Of
brief
course.
conversation. We'll stop the conversation here in a minute on this portion so I can put it up for everyone to enjoy tomorrow on Friday the 20th and beyond. But Creed, thank you. This was great. Or Creed. Court
I
Creeden.
get it all the time.
Just getting to know him, right? Yeah, Creed. I think of the guy in the office, Creed. I'm sure you've probably heard that. So
Oh, yes.
all right. Well,
Thanks.
I'm
It's
I'm
my
grateful
pleasure,
for
Ed.
you. I'm grateful for this new friendship that we're developing, and
Likewise.
when we stop recording on here, we're going to stay on and keep talking about more about what this might look like. So maybe we'll have an update for all of you at some point of what Court and I are going to do together. So,
Love
all
it.
right,
Thanks.
buddy. Thanks so much.